Welcome to Taranov's Geopolitics channel. In today's video, we are breaking down a massive update straight out of the Russian Far East that could reshape how global shipping operates in the Pacific. Moscow has just launched a sweeping naval tracking operation, placing over 1,000 foreign ships under direct military surveillance in a critical maritime corridor. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll analyze why President Putin personally ordered this mission, why almost 400 of these ships are being flagged as unfriendly, and how Russia's controversial move to identify a Western shadow fleet might spark a dangerous new precedent for international trade routes. Make sure you watch till the very end, because the operational shift we're covering at the conclusion of this video changes the calculus for every major power in the Indo-Pacific. Russia is intensifying its surveillance of maritime traffic in the Asia-Pacific region. The Russian Pacific Fleet is monitoring commercial and other vessels that are transiting waters in close proximity to the country's far eastern coastline. Admiral Liina confirmed that he is conducting the mission in accordance with the directives of President Vladimir Putin. The disclosure suggests that Moscow has shifted its focus from routine naval surveillance to direct strategic attention on maritime traffic monitoring.
European Union decisions that took place food. We observed that the governing authorities of certain nations are actively and blatantly violating international maritime rules by attempting to curtail the movement of vessels owned by our hard-working citizens, all while contemplating measures to confiscate our assets and sell off appropriated goods to their own benefit. Of course, this is nothing more than piracy and division. If this starts to be put into practice, we will need to respond in kind and possibly even mirror the actions. Not limited to operations in planned areas, but also potentially extending beyond these waters. We will act wherever we find it necessary and strategically beneficial, including in the area of responsible networks of Perpians. I would ask you to pay attention to this. They know that such an order from the Ministry of Defense has been conveyed to the team of Perpians. I would kindly request a detailed proposal regarding this matter. To conclude, I want to reiterate that Russia continues to bolster its overall security in a comprehensive way. Within the department, there is an unwavering commitment to fostering mutually beneficial compromises with all neighboring countries and partners. And we are ready to do this ourselves, but we are also surprised.
It's easier to leave the commander-in-chief. The forces and troops of the Sikian fleet are in constant combat readiness, performing tasks according to their intended purpose, are unable to ensure the security of the Russian Federation in the Asia-Pacific region. The military-political situation in the region is tense and has a steady tendency to become more complicated. The main factors in the growth of military and political tensions are the destructive activities of Western countries to override the security system of the VTR, their increase in advanced military presence, as well as the creation of Western-controlled new political and military alliances. We are talking about the bloc structure of AUKUS and the Triple Alliance. At present, new alliances such as Japhas, Squad, and Argus are being actively forged and gaining prominence. In essence, these alliances are military political factions connected to NATO, albeit under a different guise. They regularly conduct joint combat training operations, with both their frequency and scale showing a consistent increase over time. There appears to be a clear trend of integrating NATO's military political capacities into the regional strategies of the VTR. The aggravation of the situation in the operational area of the fleet is also confirmed by the increasingly aggressive activities of the military political leadership of Japan. Thus, on July 4th, a white paper was published which determined the course of the military political leadership on open militarization. Russia is identified as one of Japan's reset. It also indicated an increase in spending on military needs to 2%, The Japanese defense minister has boldly proposed scrapping the 3 nuclear-free principles, a significant and concerning proposition for our region. Simultaneously, discussions on revising Article 9 of the Constitution are underway. And the formation of armed silvers. An important issue is the threat of the West blocking Russia's maritime trade in order to inflict maximum economic damage on it. Additionally, as part of the 21st package of anti-Russian sanctions, the EU has lifted the prohibition on the sale of Russian hydrocarbons within its member states. Thus, the countries of the association are granted the right at the national level to adopt legislative decision on the possibility of selling hydrocarbons from detained ships of the so-called Russian shadow move. Thereby, the European Union seeks to legally justify its actions in contradiction with the international, who, in accordance with your comrade the Supreme Commander-in-Chief's order, we have conducted a detailed analysis of the maritime traffic carried out by the VTR. We know the routes that they are carrying and whose ships they are. Only in the exclusive economic zone of the Russian Federation along the islands of the South Kuril Greda from April 24 to August 6, 2026, 1001 trials took place. Among these vessels, 379 are registered under the flags of adversarial nations, including 273 dry cargo ships and 71 tankers, with 26 hailing from Britain and 9 from France. At the same time, the Western state actively attracts ships flying under the flags of third countries to transport goods in their interests. In fact, this is their shadow fleet. Forces for inspecting and detaining ships of non-compliant states in their shadow fleet. We have organized interdisciplinary interaction and are ready to begin solving these problems. The report has been concluded. Thank you.
The operation provides Russia with a more comprehensive understanding of the shipping movements in one of its most strategically significant maritime regions. This is where commercial traffic intersects with military activity, and the importance of international trade routes is on the rise. Now, when you look at the sheer scale of what's happening out on the water right now, the numbers are pretty mind-boggling. The volume of traffic under surveillance is huge. The figures provided by Admiral Viktor Liina indicate that over 1,000 vessels traversed Russia's exclusive economic zone between April 24 and August 6, 2026. Of these, 379 vessels were operating under the flags of countries that Russia categorizes as unfriendly states. The figures offer a glimpse of the ferocious maritime activity that surrounds Russia's Far Eastern approaches. Despite the geopolitical conflict between Moscow and Western nations, they also demonstrate the close connection between Russian waters and international shipping networks. Right around here, it's critical to remember that Taranov's analysis is showing us a classic power projection move that completely redefines regional security. Moscow does not have unrestricted control over foreign shipping in the Russian EEZ, as it extends beyond its territorial waters. The littoral state has specific rights regarding resources and certain other activities, while vessels generally retain freedom of navigation through an EEZ under international maritime law. As a result, Russia's interest is less in the physical control of every vessel and more in the understanding of the entities that are transiting the maritime space that surrounds the country. This brings us directly to why those 379 unfriendly vessels matter so much to naval strategists. From the Russian perspective, the figure of 379 vessels is of particular importance. Moscow has maintained a list of countries it deems unfriendly since the escalation of tensions with the West. This includes nations that have implemented sanctions or implemented other measures against Russia. Tracking vessels associated with these nations can offer Russian naval planners additional information regarding the commercial and strategic activities of the region. A ship's flag just doesn't tell you who actually owns the boat anymore because modern maritime legal loopholes are a total mess. A vessel may be registered in one country while being owned, chartered, insured, or commercially controlled by other jurisdictions. Its cargo may also originate in one country and ultimately be delivered to a completely different market. This complexity has become increasingly important as a result of the disruption of established patterns of Russian commodity trade by Western sanctions. That setup leads us into how Russia views what it calls the Western shadow fleet. According to Admiral Liina's own framing, Russia's concept of a Western shadow fleet is a deliberate mirror image of how Western governments use the term against Russia. In his words to Putin, Western states use vessels flying third-country flags to move cargo in their own commercial interests, and in Moscow's assessment, that arrangement itself constitutes a Western shadow fleet. From this perspective, a ship's flag is treated as unreliable evidence of who the voyage actually serves. A vessel could fly the flag of a country with no political dispute with Russia while still, in Moscow's view, forming part of a commercial chain tied to European buyers or trade networks. On that logic, flag of convenience registration, third-party chartering, or opaque ownership structures become grounds for suspicion rather than routine shipping practice. It's worth being clear about what this actually is, a political and rhetorical framing announced alongside a policy decision, not a technical or evidentiary finding. Liina did not present vessel-by-vessel evidence connecting any of the 379 flagged ships to sanction-sensitive European trade. The statement was a general assertion used to justify a new posture, that the Pacific Fleet now has the forces and interagency coordination in place to inspect and detain vessels of unfriendly states it deems part of this shadow fleet. That distinction matters because the announcement follows and is widely read as a response to Western seizures of Russian-linked tankers, 9 vessels carrying Russian oil detained by the UK and EU since the start of 2026. Framing Western-flagged commercial shipping as a reciprocal, shadow fleet, gives Moscow a symmetrical justification for boarding and detention, regardless of whether the underlying commercial facts support that label in any given case. Don't go anywhere just yet, because at this exact moment, Taranov's analysis is highlighting a massive tactical escalation that could disrupt global supply chains overnight. A caveat on terminology: not every foreign-flagged vessel is a shadow fleet vessel by any standard definition. International shipping routinely relies on foreign flags, chartering arrangements, and layered ownership for entirely ordinary commercial reasons. The term is generally reserved, including in Western usage against Russian oil exports, for vessels and networks specifically built to route around sanctions, insurance restrictions, or financial controls. Whether Russia's application of the term to the 379 vessels meets that bar is, at this point, an assertion by Russian military leadership. All of this stems from how shipping networks have grown dramatically more complicated. The complexity of maritime trading networks has been exacerbated by Western sanctions and restrictions on Russian commodities. Ownership, registration, or management arrangements of vessels may undergo modifications. Chartering and insurance may involve entities that are not part of the conventional European and North American maritime system, and cargoes may transit intermediary countries. Consequently, Russia can obtain more comprehensive information regarding vessel traffic by monitoring these movements. It can assist authorities in understanding the impact of sanctions on trade routes, the movement of Russian commodities, and the evolution of commercial networks that connect Russia to international markets. This is especially important in the energy sector, where Russia continues to be a significant exporter and where shipping has become an increasingly significant aspect of commerce during the sanctions era. Understanding these trade dynamics brings us to why the Asia-Pacific region is taking center stage. The surveillance operation also serves as an indicator of the increasing strategic significance of the Asia-Pacific region to Russia. Moscow has shifted its focus to Asian markets and partners as its economic relationship with Europe has deteriorated. Southeast Asian and Middle Eastern countries have also become significant components of Russia's broader trading network, while China and India have become particularly significant destinations for Russian commodities. As a result, the significance of the maritime routes that connect Russia's Far East with the broader Indo-Pacific region has gone up. Consequently, the Pacific Fleet operates in a context where commercial shipping, energy transportation, naval activity, and geopolitical competition are becoming more interconnected. But if you think this is just about trade routes, stick around, because what the Pacific Fleet is building on the operational side is where things get truly tense. Systematic surveillance of shipping can offer the Russian Navy a critical operational perspective. Russian authorities are able to establish a more detailed understanding of the ships that are transiting the country's exclusive economic zone by monitoring over 1,000 vessels for a period of slightly more than 3 months. An additional category for Russian authorities to monitor is the 379 vessels that are sailing under unfriendly flags. This does not inherently imply that each vessel is regarded as a threat. Rather, the information has the potential to enhance a more comprehensive understanding of maritime situational awareness. It is an essential operational requirement for a navy that is responsible for safeguarding one of the world's longest coastlines to be aware of the activities in the surrounding waters. This intelligence gathering is happening right as strategic competition directly confronts commercial traffic. Additionally, the waters surrounding Russia's Far East are becoming increasingly congested from a strategic standpoint. The United States, China, Japan, South Korea, and Russia all have significant economic and military interests in the broader Pacific and Northeast Asian region. Naval patrols, military exercises, and other strategic activities are conducted in conjunction with commercial vessels. As we reach this critical turning point in the region, Taranov's analysis is pointing to one undeniable reality: maritime intelligence is the new ultimate battleground. The maritime environment that has resulted is becoming increasingly critical in terms of surveillance. A commercial ship may be just transporting cargo, however, its movement can also be a component of a much larger trading network that spans multiple countries and jurisdictions. Moscow is increasingly recognizing the significance of understanding this network in its maritime awareness. When you pull all these threads together, you see a much broader indicator of Russia's long-term maritime strategy. The figures provided by Admiral Liina are just a snapshot, but they illustrate the extent of the maritime environment that Russia is monitoring. The figures also underscore a changing reality in international shipping. The nationality displayed on a ship's stern may no longer offer a comprehensive understanding of the vessel's cargo, ownership, or commercial interests. The shadow fleet debate is particularly pertinent to Russia, as ships that operate under the flags of third countries can continue to engage in trade with European markets. It is evident that Moscow is aiming to obtain a comprehensive understanding of maritime activity in the Pacific approaches, as the surveillance mission is being executed under Putin's guidance. In an Asia-Pacific region that is becoming increasingly contested, the ability to identify the movements of ships, their registration locations, and their connections to global trade networks is becoming a strategic capability in its own right. If you like this podcast, please like, subscribe and share.